Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is dear to all of our hearts. It's about reincarnation. And we have here the honor to be with Dr. Stafford Batty. He's an expert on afterlife studies and has been a professor of religious studies at California State University at Bakersfield for almost 40 years. He has authored 7 books and published several articles in scholarly journals and the popular press. And especially today, he's going to tell us about his article published in the Spiritists magazine and also elsewhere about why should Catholics also embrace the concept of reincarnation. And of course, we're not here to talk about, to undermine anybody, but just to bring about the religious aspect, the study of it. He has published amazing books, and we're going to talk about mostly 2 of them, The Afterlife Unveiled, as well as The Imprisoned Splendor. And this is just a teaser because we hope he's going to be back with us in the near future to explore more about the amazing works he has been doing regarding religious studies. And he's here with us, and very soon we're going to open the line to hear from him and learn a lot about his understanding and how does he think Spiritism can be, the concepts can be embraced by other maybe philosophies and religions. Kardec Radio has listeners in more than 60 countries, and at this very, very moment, we have our sister radio from Miami, Florida, Bezerra Online Web Radio, also retransmitting Kardec Radio shows. Not only that, but we have another good news as well. Kardec Radio is now transmitting the study sessions and the talks that happen every Thursday at the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. Every Thursday, live at 7 p.m., you can be with us here through Kardec Radio. And just so you know, this current month of June, we are dedicating mostly to understanding how Spiritism can contribute to diminish the epidemic of obesity in the United States of America and around the world. We are joining forces with the National Public Health Campaign, The Weight of the Nation. It's most important, and this past week you already find the first session we had this past Thursday. It's there, The Weight of the Nation session with the Spiritist approach and much, much, much more. Also today, we are going to have a special session dedicated to the campaign I Honor My Parents. The Spirit Society of Baltimore is promoting a support group for parents as much as the Spirit Society of Virginia, of course, every Saturday, first Saturday of the month. And tonight we have a special talk that we're going to lead entitled Mother Mary, the Role Model of Parenting. It's very unique, and you'll be delighted because there is so much to learn about it. Very inspirational, very empowering. Today, you also be able to listen beautiful music, both in Portuguese and in English, that was composed by James Marotta in Brazil and was actually first performed at a beautiful seminar on the book by Emmanuel Chico Xavier entitled On the Way to the Light. It's about the history of humankind through the eyes of Spiritism. And it talks about, this very song talks about an unparalleled night that happened on the earth more than 2,000 years ago. You know what we're talking about? You're going to listen to that in a few minutes. And at some point in the program, we're also going to give you a beautiful prayer that Kirsten de Mello recorded for us. It's the famous prayer of Caritas, and it's a beautiful, very dear to our hearts prayer, and you're going to love it as well. So right now, we want to tell you that, Allan Kardec himself respected all beliefs, and we did it as ourselves. So Kardec, he talks about freedom of conscience as one of the characteristics of true civilization and progress. So we embrace that concept. It's in the Spirit's book, question and answer 837. And one thing that is quite interesting that would bring a lot of peace around the world is the understanding of the answer to this question that Kardec made. Is every belief respectable, even when notoriously wrong-headed? The answer is revolutionary. The illuminated spirits brought to us the very straightforward answer by saying, every belief is respectable when it is sincere and leads to the practice of the good. Reproachable beliefs are those that lead to evil. Of course, we can go long ways talking about what evil means, etc., but the bottom line is that Spiritism in itself is charity. It promotes charity, and we are not here to blame anybody, to create scandal, to create accusations. Kardec Radio is here today to open our hearts and minds to study how religious beliefs can gain so much if they embrace the universality of the teachings and use the reasoning to avoid blind faith. In that regard, we are most honored that Dr. Stafford Batty, who is now in California, is with us and will be leading us into new understanding of things he has been studying for many decades and found Spiritism, and now puts together a beautiful proposal that we should also think about. Right now, we'd like to leave with you to kickstart this program the very music we mentioned to you by James Moroder. In Portuguese, it's entitled Noite Igual, and in English, it's probably like An Parallel Night. It's James Moroder and his partner. The first part is in Portuguese, the second in English. Let us open our hearts and enjoy this beautiful song that invites us to the very topics we're going to talk about today as well.
Noite igual não haverá nesse mundo e o céu não brilhará outra vez igual. Dia de festa, anjos cantando, é Natal, nasceu o Cristo, o Mestre irmão, para mostrar que no coração há um lugar para todo irmão, sem cor, sem raça, sem distinção, te damos graças, ó Mestre irmão, por nascer entre nós a cada dia que vem, junto com o sol, trazendo paz e esperança de ver outra noite igual.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live, every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
The International Spiritist Council is organizing and promoting the 7th World Spiritist Congress, which will be held in Havana, Cuba on March 23rd through the 25th of 2013. The Congress theme will be Charity and Spiritual Education in Building a World of Peace. 150 years of the Gospel according to Spiritism. For more information, please visit www.7cem.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Join us every Thursday, live, Evolution in Two Worlds, a journey of the soul through the teachings of the Spirit Doctor, Andrea Luiz. Connect at www.tvcei.com, Channel 2.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
A new great book and tool for kids and educators. The children's book, Our Father by the Spirit Mei, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is available for purchase at www.edisayofamerica.com. Buy your copy today.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are asking this question: why should other thoughts, religions like the Catholics, embrace the concept of reincarnation? Well, we brought here an expert, and the one that is actually proposing this mindset is Dr. Stafford Betty. He's a PhD and a professor at California State University at Bakersfield for more than 40 years. He has published many books, scholarly articles. You can go to his website at www.csub.edu/sbetty and get to know more about him. Some people were just asking us, can they call in? Of course you can call in and ask your question. You can call in at 858-769-4705 at Kardec Radio Today, show live. If you want to talk to us another time when we are not here live, you can call us at 410-382-5328. And we also would like to share with you that the song you heard before the break by James Morota and his partner was performed at Haroldo Dutra Dias' seminar in Belo Horizonte, Brazil, about the book On the Way to the Light. We also want to share that most recently, good friends of ours are putting together a beautiful cartoon about Chico Xavier only in English, something that we're really looking forward to having the material available. And can you imagine our children being born and exposed to a cartoon on Chico Xavier, his life and his lessons? We're really coming about as a new society. We have come a long way. There's a lot to do, but that's why Kardec Radio is here to join forces, nourish our souls, and bring our spirits up and our hope as well. Dr. Stafford Betty is here with us directly from California. Thank you so much, Dr. Betty, for being with us at Kardec Radio today.
I'm honored, and it's a pleasure to be here. Good morning.
As I mentioned to you, good morning. We are so excited that finally we found you. I was so impressed the fact that, you've been there studying about it, so many religious studies, including Spiritism, and it took us all these years to finally found you. Can't believe it.
It's my fault. It took me too many years to find you.
So, Dr. Betty, how did it happen that you got interested in religious studies in general?
Well, it probably goes back to my Catholic upbringing in Mobile, Alabama. I was taught, since I was in the first grade by Sisters of Mercy, and I just drank in the Catholic doctrine. It was my religion, and I was just naturally pious, and I found belief easy. And I loved my church, and I loved my upbringing, and still have very pleasant memories of that. Not unhappy to have been raised in that religion, but I outgrew it at some point, and it happened right after when I got back from Vietnam. I completely lost faith in God, in the truth of religion, and went to graduate school and studied theology at Fordham University, which is a Jesuit university, in the hopes of putting together what I had lost. And what I discovered in the process of that was, hey, there's something much bigger than Catholicism out there. And I discovered the Upanishads of Hinduism and the Bhagavad Gita, and it's been a long, long haul ever since.
Wow. When you're talking about Catholicism, do you find it different from Catholicism in Brazil? Because it seems in Brazil people have quite a because it's a major Catholic country.
Sure. Well, since I haven't been to Brazil, I can't speak as an authority. But Catholicism in America means so many different things. There are about a quarter of the Catholic population in polls will say that they believe in reincarnation, which is rather remarkable when you think about it, because this is a church that discourages such a belief. And in Brazil, I don't know if that figure would be the same, but my sense is that most Catholics here, and probably most of them there, are very suspicious of the teaching, consider it pagan and un-Catholic. Am I correct in that, Vanessa?
Yes, you are, and I would say this. What happens there, which is quite fascinating, is that for such a Catholic country like Brazil, Spiritism grew so fast. I come from a fifth-generation family in Spiritism. And
really?
Yes, so it's like my great-grandfather moved from Italy, and then he was a Catholic, and then he became a Spiritist. And then the other thing is, since then, it was such a tough time. They have stories after stories of the persecution of the church. to Spiritists. I remember my grandmother, who is still alive, and she's saying, we used to go to school and our parents would say, you don't deny your belief, but you don't tease people. And if they say something, you just forgive them. But they would enter, their school, and some would say, oh, here come the witches. But they never stopped it anyhow. And thanks to those people who really faced it, we are here. And it's amazing because Spiritism grew so strong, and now it's widespread in Brazil, and still Brazil is very Catholic.
Brazil is just it is a contemporary miracle, in my opinion. It's just astonishing how many millions of people are Spiritists in Brazil, and you don't find anything like this in any other country in the world.
Exactly. And then I'm wondering, is it because in some way and form, the Catholic format and dynamics, I would say, does it probably prepare us? It's like prepare us is foundational, and it's almost there for accepting the concept of Spiritism, different from Protestant views and others as well. Because I say this because Brazil is considered the biggest Catholic country in the world, and all the greatest Spiritists, they were former Catholics.
Yes, indeed.
And
there's something about Catholicism that nourishes Spiritism in spite of what the official church would have us do.
Exactly. So
it is amazing, isn't it? I think it all goes down to that purgatorial teaching. I think that there's so much in common between purgatory, cleaned up and civilized and made plausible, that is totally unlike anything we find in Protestant Christianity in the United States. And I think that key Catholic teaching kind of opens the door, at least the back door, to Spiritist views.
That's interesting. That hypothesis is really something that is. It sounds quite plausible when you're talking about, and I see one of your books about the afterlife unveiled.
Yep.
It's mostly a research on 160 years of different philosophies talking about the afterlife. Is that what it is?
It is. It's what it is. It's a collection. It's a research book that is based on many years of study of these Spiritist revelations coming through world-class mediums, starting about the time of Allan Kardec in 1855, and going right on up to the present. Spirits have been trying to get through to us to tell us about their world and to assure us that they're very real and that world is very real. And it's a study of that effort by spirits writing through, or at least talking through mediums. And it's a summary of what I have found in my studies. It's a summary of what they say. It's a summary of their world. It's a description of the world that they have described to us in literally thousands of attempts to do so, many of them put down in books, most of them out of print now, but still available to me as a scholar.
Exactly. But if we can go like one step back when you're talking about, the possibilities of the Catholic belief being like a foundational preparation in some way and form because of the similarities. So they talk about angels. They talk about the fact that we have these afterlife experiences as well. So there are so many correlates. It's as if we're talking about what Kardec said, like the universal truth. Of course, we're not disputing the truth here at this program, but we're talking about, so it's so similar in some way and forms. But what happened to the fact that when we talk about reincarnation, there is such a split in accepting it?
There is there, and it all goes back to the Second Council of Constantinople, surprisingly, which took place in 553 A.D. And it is commonly thought that at that council, reincarnation was anathematized, was condemned. In fact, it wasn't, and even if it were, there were only 6 Western bishops in attendance at that conference. It was by no means an ecumenical conference. And unfortunately, the Church, ever since that time, has assumed that it was an ecumenical council and that it spoke with the authority of papal sanction And unfortunately, reincarnation has not been really opened up and reconsidered by the church in the last 1,500 years. That needs to happen, by the way, but it hasn't yet.
That's so interesting. And then why do you think resistance happen in that regard?
I think it comes down to the biblical worldview. It was not a reincarnational worldview. The Jews did not believe in it. There was talk of it, and there are references to it, but it's pretty clear from reading the New Testament, not to mention the Old Testament, that it's a one life view. Most of the Jews at the time of Jesus thought that the world was about to end anyway, and so it wouldn't have made much sense to talk about the worlds in the future. Many people think that Jesus himself looked to the end time as coming imminently, if not in the very lifetime of his disciples. And so it just wasn't a time when future states would have been logically compatible with the worldview at the time. And I think that one life view has carried on through Catholicism and Christianity ever since. And it also is found in Islam, and of course it's found in most of Judaism. So we've had to live with that. I think very abbreviated sense of where we are in the total scheme of things in God's plan ever since. And thank heaven for movements like Spiritism, which is trying to broaden the base.
Exactly, and it's interesting because if we go back, I wonder if they don't. How do people interpret that passage in John? Mm-hmm. Especially the third verse of chapter 3, when they talk about Nicodemus talking to Jesus and Jesus saying that I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God.
Right.
And
yes.
How do people interpret that then?
Yes, they don't interpret that reincarnationally at all. Being reborn is for at least all Protestant Christians, without exception. Being reborn refers to baptism, being reborn in water and the Spirit, as it says. So it's you have your first birth, and that's when you come out of your mother's womb, and then the second birth, or the rebirth, is when you might say become enlightened enough to be a follower of Christ. Mm-hmm. So that's the way it's interpreted. It's not put into a reincarnational context in the least.
And he says, if we go back to that moment when then Nicodemus replies by asking, "But how can a man be born when he's old?" And then Jesus replies, as you just mentioned, we understand that it's open wide to interpretations, but still. And what is interesting is that the interpretation of the Bible sometimes is taken so literally, and other times it is not. It's taken as a symbolic thing. So it's really quite not consistent there.
No, it's not.
Right?
You're right. That is true. But Vanessa, I do want to make clear, though, that the most biblical scholars, at least in the United States, would not even imagine that passage referred to reincarnation. I wish that were not the case, but that happens to be the case. So they would not find, in other words, a reincarnationist like me would not find comfort from fellow scholars when placing that quotation in front of them and asking for support. It's not going to come.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Dr. Betty, we're going to go for a 2-minute break. When we come back,
right.
We want to know more about your article and your proposal on why Catholics should consider reincarnation, if not
you
others
bet
as well. All right.
Okay, Vanessa.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live, every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
A new great book and tool for kids and educators. The children's book, Our Father by the Spirit Mei, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is available for purchase at www.eddiesayofamerica.com. Buy your copy today.
Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
The newest edition of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec is now available. Purchase your copy online or via your ebook reader. Simply go to www.edicofamerica.com today.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Join us every Thursday live. Evolution in Two Worlds. A journey of the soul through the teachings of the Spirit Doctor, Andrea Luiz. Connect at www.tvcei.com, Channel 2.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone, the online study of the Spirit's Book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. Spiritism for Everyone meets every Wednesday evening and Saturday morning using the latest technology in web conferencing. You can join in from any computer in the comfort of your home or office, no matter where you are in the U.S. or the world. Spiritism for Everyone is open, free, and requires no registration. To access the web live meetings, go to www.spiritist.us. Spiritism for Everyone is a program of the United States Spiritist Council.
And now we return to our program.
We are here today talking about why should we consider reincarnation if we don't consider it yet. It could be Catholics, it could be anyone, but specifically the article that Dr. Stafford Batty wrote to the Spiritist magazine, and also a scholarly article is in that line of thought. So, Dr. Batty, why is it so difficult to embrace it? Why should they consider it if in a better, more positive perspective? Why should then be considered?
Yeah, let me put this in a wider context. I'm going to ask you all to consider why God created the universe in the way that He did, or created our world in the way it is. And I'm going to go back to St. John of the Cross, who is one of the great Spanish mystics and Catholics of the 16th century. And he answered the question this way: God's purpose is to make the soul great. That's God's purpose. Rabbi David Wolpe, another one of my favorite authors, put it this way. He said that we're all spirit buds. And, if we're buds today, then tomorrow we may be flowers. And that nothing less could please God so much than that we become great as He designed us to eventually become. But this kind of greatness does not come cheap. It doesn't come quick, as we all know. Challenged, if we're not challenged, we will wilt. And we are challenged in our world. And the challenge, Spiritist teaching would have it, is unending. And if it's not unending, then we stop growing at precisely the point where the challenges stop. And the great thing about Spiritism is that it provides endless challenge, not just challenges in one lifetime, but challenges throughout eternity. We never stop growing. We become immense beings spiritually compared to what we are now. And I think that's incredibly exciting. And Catholicism, I think, misses the point here. It does not envision this kind of destiny for us. The challenge stops when we get to heaven, and it becomes a place of rest and celebration. That's not the way I envision a heaven in the least. I see it a place where we continue to be challenged and to grow and to learn how to become more joyous and to, you might say, use more of our potential faculties. We're just getting started. We're at kindergarten right now. This is a moral gymnasium, and the gymnasium doesn't stop just because we go to heaven.
Wow. It's interesting you're saying this because the one thing that comes to mind is it possible that the missing link was like in the transition from Judaism to the Catholic Church? Is it possible that the missing link was in between?
Yeah, I think that if we had become, let's put it this way, as I mentioned earlier, Judaism does not evince any kind of sympathy for the reincarnational worldview, and to the extent that Christianity has been marked and you might say directed and inspired by the Jewish vision, to that extent, we're going to find resistance to anything like a many-life philosophy. Mm-hmm. Until we get, of course, to there are, of course, some Jews who are members of a small sect which does believe in reincarnation, but that sect is extremely small compared to the mainstream. And unfortunately, in my view, Christianity has been marked rather heavily and guided by that worldview.
Mm. So the thing is, if we probably get to know or revisit very deeply the Jesus that is the foundation of the Catholic Church, we would probably have an easier time reconsidering it because...
Yes,
right?
I think so. I don't see Jesus as ever making any kind of a statement. I don't know of any words that have been put into his mouth or that he actually is recorded to have said that are explicitly negative with respect to reincarnation. I don't think that you can read the scriptures and see him as being reincarnationist or anti-reincarnationist. I think that the door is open.
So then, do you find that the Spiritist perspective, Kardec's bringing a new vision on reincarnation, is different from other types of, because there are other beliefs out there that talk about reincarnation, but it's quite different. Do you think that Kardec's proposal on the concept of reincarnation would be more easily accepted if more widespread?
I think that Kardec's, you're right. In so many of the, you might say, of the Hindu or Asian reincarnationist perspectives are kind of simplistic and are kind of tit for tat. Okay, if you do this, this is going to happen to you, and it becomes somewhat childlike in the way it's understood. And you don't find that in Kardec. You find this wonderful school that continues throughout untold eons for each of the souls. And the worldview is simply more evolved in Kardec than it is in some of the earlier Hindu and Buddhist doctrines of reincarnation and rebirth. I quite agree with you.
Yeah, it's quite different. But the thing is, do you think that the element that we should bring to the plate to consider reincarnation is the acceptance of reasoning our faith?
I think that, let's put it this way. What I find when I read the Spirits book, and I read it for the first time about 4 years ago, and I was just incredibly excited by what I was reading. It all seemed so reasonable. It all seemed so plausible. Mm-hmm. It did not feel like blind faith in the least to me. In other words, if I were God, I would have worked things out very much along the lines that Kardec's spirits have explained it. Mm-hmm. That was my sense of it. It felt very rational to me. Mm-hmm. It felt fair, and it was full of hope and full of, you might say, love, just everything positive that you would want in a religion. I found in this book, and I realized, my gosh, I never knew this before, but I must be a Spiritist. I couldn't find a church though anywhere near Bakersfield, California, where I could go and be a Spiritist in my practice.
You're right.
I sent it to my sister who was a Catholic and said, "You've got to read this." And 1 week later, she called me and said, I'm a Spiritist. That's how plausible it seems, and it is as you read it.
And you're so right, because Kardec, when he classifies in the Medium's book, chapter 3, he talks about 4 different types of Spiritists, and he says there is one that he's entitling Spiritists without knowing. They know it, but they don't know. And really, he's not saying this because it matters to label ourselves Spiritists or not. It's more about the action than really labeling
I understand.
us, right? But as you're saying this, we're so interested that we have a listener that even want to know more about, if Jesus said he's coming back, the life never ends. Isn't he also here once again suggesting that, we can come back? When, for example, the disciples, he was asking the disciples in his last meeting, so, who do people say I am? And one said, they say you were Elijah reincarnated.
Come back.
They say you were actually John the Baptist resurrected, etc., etc. So the question is, wasn't he clearly opening up? They really talked about these things so easily, about being back in the flesh. And where did the Catholic Church miss it, if not, of course, the other Christian churches?
Yeah, well, it's true. There obviously reincarnational belief. You might say it was in the wind. It was a contender for the worldview of the 20th century, of the first century Jew. Jews had heard about this doctrine, or they couldn't have spoken in such ways. Jesus would not have spoken in such ways. His followers would not have spoken in such ways. So you might say that it was a contender, but it was not the contender that ended up winning. And unfortunately, so we're obviously not living in a Christian world that is, at least at official levels, open to rebirth. But there are so many, many Catholics who are privately believers. And in fact, the latest poll that I saw about Baptists, and they're about as Protestant as you can get, indicates that 20% of them privately believe in it also. So people believe in reincarnation for a lot of reasons. And mainly, though, it just makes sense.
It can be very comforting,
and it makes sense for a number of
right?
reasons. Pardon me?
It can be very comforting, consoling, too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things about it. It can be consoling. You realize that the things that happen to you that seem unfair may be very much a part of your karma. Perhaps it's something that you needed to have happen to you to grow. It's just the latest of challenges that the universe is serving up to you. If only you could see what your past life involved, then you would understand that it wasn't unfair after all. That could be very consoling to a person who's going through difficult times. And there are other consolations as well, just the knowledge that one doesn't go to eternal hell, that there's no such place as that. But one can expect another life. And if someone has blown this life, and perhaps your child has committed suicide, perhaps your child has died an addict, it's not the end. He's not in hell. He's going to have to come back and get it right. But how much better is that than going to hell? I mean, it's a huge improvement.
Exactly. And as you're saying this, one more question before we go to another break. Dr. Betty, when we think about these concepts, do you think that, sometimes, according to your many decades of studies in religions, and especially in that regard that intersects with Spiritism, do you think that one hypothesis why people resist embracing the concept of reincarnation is the other side of the coin, which means defense mechanism, because of their poor decisions, and they thinking about, I don't want to come back and fix this or change that, or have to experience the other side of the story of what I
quite agree with you.
Right?
That is indeed one of the reasons that Protestants resist this teaching. I find this in my classroom. It comes down to the feeling, look, I'm saved. It doesn't really matter what I do the rest of my life. I'm going to go straight to heaven. I can lead a morally shabby life. I can be quite mediocre, but, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. I've accepted him, and therefore there's nothing for me to worry about. This kind of worldview discourages excellence. And I think that many people, take a false consolation in that belief. I quite agree with you.
Yes, you're right. So, Dr. Safford, we are here very excited about sharing this and knowing more about your studies, and we want to know more, especially on how you view that embracing the concept of reincarnation and the knowing of the existence of this law of life can really impact and change our lives. We'll be in a third break, and we'll be back with you.
I'll be happy to address that.
Thank you.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Hi, this is Nara Venditti with Succeed in America by Packaging Your Brilliance, helping foreign-born and immigrant professionals succeed in the American workplace. Our topic today is public speaking tips for non-native speakers. Giving a presentation can be a frightful experience for many people. As a matter of fact, studies have shown that public speaking ranks as the number one fear, even before fear of death. While formidable and difficult for even native speakers, for non-native speakers it is much more challenging. To make their presentation stress-free and more effective, non-native speakers should apply the following tips. Write out the script of your presentation or speech. Then mark the script for emphasis and pauses. Speak slowly. Enunciate. That means pronounce words distinctly. Encourage the listeners to ask what they misunderstood. Practice, practice, practice. Use these simple tips and you will remove communication barriers between you and your listeners. This is Nara Venditti with Succeed in America by Packaging Your Brilliance, helping immigrant and foreign-born professionals succeed in the workplace. If you have any questions, please email me at Nara, N-A-R-A, at succeedinamerica.com, SUCCEED in America.com. And thank you for listening.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
For the first time ever, the book Between Heaven and Earth by the spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is now in English. This is a novel that offers information about the relationship that exists in the activities of the spirit on the two planes of life. Purchase your copy today at www.edysayofamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.edysayofamerica.com today. The International Spiritist Council is organizing and promoting the 7th World Spiritist Congress, which will be held in Havana, Cuba on March 23rd through the 25th of 2013. The Congress theme will be Charity and Spiritual Education in Building a World of Peace. 150 years of the Gospel according to Spiritism. For more information, please visit www.7cem.org.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, did you know that Kardec Radio is in more than 60 countries, and we're very grateful to all listeners who have been supporting us and have been sending their comments, questions, suggestions, and you can also do the same. We are here at kardecradio@gmail.com or kardec@kardecradio.com. Also, in less than a month, we're going to have our first anniversary program. It's going to be on the 4th of July at 12 p.m., and we're going to have a 3-hour show, very special, and you're invited to join us. You can send your comments, suggestions, especially for that show as well. And we are also now streaming Kardec Radio on Thursdays live at 7 p.m., the sessions of the Spiritists out of Baltimore. We have beautiful segments today about Spiritism for children. Bernadette Liao is going to tell us about how to teach our children to be charitable. Kirsten DeMello in Spiritist Moments is going to tell us about the evil and good and evil in Kardec's view according to the moral laws in the third part of the Spirits book. Then we have Dr. Magalhães in Spiritism in Your Life talking about the universality of the Spiritist principles. And then Dr. Fonseca with his adorable wife, Gabi Ferreira, will be with us here telling about God at Home meetings with Jesus. At the very end, a beautiful prayer that Christian de Mello recorded for Kardec Radio entitled the famous prayer of Caritas or Caritas. You will enjoy it very much, I'm sure about it. As much, and you are enjoying, I know, because we received a lot of feedback. Cynthia Fabretti, who is here with us, wrote that we should invite Dr. Stafford Betty to join us in a Spiritist seminar in the United States of America. How about that, Dr. Betty?
I'd be really honored to do that. It would be a pleasure. It truly would.
Because you know, Dr. Betty, we have these national meetings once a year.
Yes.
The Spiritist Symposium, and it's great to have, people like yourself, especially you who know so much about Spiritism and from a more academic level and the religious studies perspective to join forces and share with us. So we also need to learn more about where we're coming from and what we're encountering so we can be more effective in sharing the news, right?
I absolutely agree. You need to get the word out. In other words, Spiritism should be a lot bigger in America than it is, and I'm not sure why it isn't a much bigger force, spiritual force in this country. It deserves to be, and it's something that needs to be worked out and thought about. You're right.
Yes, maybe Jesus is the only model to explain us why. As he said, the time will come. So
Right. That's right. We work toward it.
But I think through collaborations with you, we can certainly empower ourselves to share. It's about sharing the news, as Jesus suggested to us. Let's share the good news.
Yeah.
Right? And talking
Absolutely.
about sharing the good news, is it possible that reincarnation is also a good news to share with other people?
I'm going to read to you a very brief, just a sentence from Geddes McGregor. He wrote a book called Reincarnation in Christianity. This book was published in 1978. This is a man who was an eminent professor, a philosopher of religion at University of Southern California. And he's a Christian. Listen to what he said. I see no reason why a Christian should not at least entertain the suggestion that the re-embodiment should occur over and over again, giving the individual opportunity to grow in the love of God. That re-embodiment I would call reincarnation. I am inclined to think the concept of reincarnation is indeed the key to a fuller Christian understanding of human destiny. Then he goes on to say, some form of reincarnationism could much enhance the spirituality of the West. I could not agree more. Those are powerful words, and coming from an expert from a previous generation, it's amazing that this work is out of, this wonderful book is out of circulation and has just been forgotten about by most people, and that should not have happened.
It's amazing as you're talking about the book, you're bringing that back to us. I came across in your website, and I want to share this with our listeners, to find you at the California State University of Bakersfield, the website, your website there is csub.edu. / Ask Betty, when you have a PowerPoint, it's like 50 slides that sum up much of what you publish in the Afterlife Unveiled, right?
That's right. It is. It's called the Nifty 50. And you're right. It's a summary in 50 statements of what the afterlife is like according to spirits speaking to us from the other side through world-class mediums. And, of course, Allan Kardec's spirits are part of that group. And, it's an incredibly interesting world that we're headed toward. And, of course, it's a world that most of us will leave by way of coming back to Earth for another shot in the flesh. And perhaps we do this over and over again. But it's interesting how one of the alternatives is that we don't come back and that we go forward once we are, you might say, sufficiently enlightened and sufficiently spiritually mature. That is an option, and I'd love to believe that I did not have to come back and do this again, though I strongly suspect I will. Because the challenges are here at the earth plane, and for a soul that is not sufficiently mature, the world that we enter at death becomes almost too easy for us. We're not sufficiently challenged by the kinds of conditions that we find here on our own planet, where we find plenty to challenge us. And that's as it should be.
Exactly.
And Kardec sees this with such clarity, with perfect clarity. He sees this.
You're right, and you think the concept of reincarnation can impact our society at some point? Can you envision already a world that embraces this understanding of reincarnation as a natural law, and how it would impact the different sectors of the dynamics in our society?
You know what? I'm gonna just read to you a short passage from the Master himself. This is from his conclusion. It's the Spirits book, and he answers this very question beautifully. It is to the very absence of belief that we can attribute the general disintegration of family ties and the greater part of the disorders that are now undermining society. By demonstrating the existence and immortality of the soul, on the other hand, the Spiritist doctrine revives faith in the future, raises the courage of the depressed among us, and enables us to bear the trials of life with resignation. Do you call this an evil? We're confronted here with two opposing doctrines. One denies the existence of a future life, the other proclaims and proves it. One explains nothing, the other explains everything, and in doing so, appeals to our reason. One provides a justification for selfishness, the other offers a firm basis for justice, compassion, and love toward our fellow human beings. One shows only the present and abolishes all hope, the other consoles us by showing us the vast enterprise of the future. Which of the two is more harmful? So, what could be clearer than that?
Exactly. And in your novel, The Imprisoned Splendor, we want to know more about this book also, because it talks not only about the afterlife, but talks about the law of karma, action and reaction.
It sure does.
And it talks about the need to coming back.
This book is a lot like No Solar, actually. It's interesting because I'd started to write this book long before I read No Solar, and I was just astounded at the similarity between the two. So you're right. This is a book about judgment and karma and how it works itself out, and about how eventually our lead characters reincarnate, and the deal that they, you might say that they invent for that reincarnation. I won't tell you how it all ends, but it's a book about reincarnation, a book about karma. It's called The Imprisoned Splendor, and it'd be interesting for your readers to read this and then to compare what one finds in No Solar. There'd be far more similarity than dissimilarity, I can assure you that.
Exactly, and Kardec talks about that, the similarities as he did himself. Like the similarities is what really bring the confirmation from different, regions on the planet, etc., different minds, the same information. How do they come across that way, right? We cannot keep ourselves into cynicism,
right,
and dismiss it, whether these can be powerful tools to transform our society and our
Absolutely, and you're right that there is the thing that struck me in my research was how similar the descriptions of the other world were. I've looked at dozens of these accounts, and if I were to pick up another book from another spirit speaking through a different medium, I would probably almost be bored because it would be the same thing. And that indicates that we're looking at something real rather than somebody's hallucination. And as a scholar, I am very impressed by the similarity in these accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it leaves me feeling that my faith is anything but blind, but powerfully protected and supported by evidence and by research. And that's a great feeling to live with. I'm not afraid of death at all anymore. I have no doubt about what death leads to. And Kardec is just one of those master voices that has led to that conviction.
And
that's something that our world desperately needs, the conviction that there is accountability for the things that we do in this life. And I think that so many young people have no clue that the mess that they're making of their lives, the laziness with which they lead their lives, their endless texting, their trivial pursuits, the philosophy that they live with just doesn't encourage anything better than that. And what a tragedy.
It is. It's just a waste, right? It
is a waste of human potential. And the absence of belief in a future life is, I think, what is driving that waste.
So we can probably save lives.
Oh, no question about it. Gandhi said as much. He said that the key to human effort is belief in a future life and accountability in the face of the universe.
So, in that regard, then, Dr. Betty, how do you think we could probably be more efficient? It's not about being proselytizing here. It's about sharing. How can we possibly, from your perspective as a scholar, and seeing the same information over and over again throughout the different beliefs, of course, more simplistic or more thorough in the details, but how can we be more effective if it's so important to get to know this? How can we possibly be more effective sharing this?
You're being, or something in the universe is being much more effective in sharing this vision than you think. There are now, just in the last couple of years, national afterlife conferences at a national, even international level. This is a new phenomenon in American society. I know that you're having Mike Tim on your show in 2 or 3 weeks, and he's a good friend of mine, and he's doing the same kind of research that I'm doing. And there are several of us now that are doing this research, and many people are reading our books and are learning about this research, and that I think that belief in a Spiritist doctrine is on the march right now. It could be. In other words, by reaching somebody like me, and Kardec has reached me, and he, as I say, he changed my life. Reading the Spirits book was an incredibly powerful thing for me. I am being reached, and the world is gradually being reached and changed. So I think there's room for hope here. It's true that things are not moving as fast as we would like. But every time a scholar like me, somebody who has credentials, writes a book like The Afterlife Unveiled, that helps the cause, or writes a novel like The Imprisoned Splendor, that helps the cause. It really helps if somebody has a PhD behind their name and can actually go public and say, look, I take this stuff seriously. That helps a heck of a lot. Incidentally, I've run into a lot of persecution at the level, you might say at the academic level. And without tenure and without being a full professor, I probably would have been fired quite a few years ago. But I am protected, and I'm not, and I'm courageous enough to go forward. We need a few more people like me in academia to do this.
I agree with you. I know where you're coming from because I am at university, and I see the risk we're taking when we are adventuring ourselves out there, and I already feel the setbacks, and people have no idea. unfortunately. But sometimes we are sad, mostly, I don't know if you agree, about people who raise the Christian flag sometimes and persecute us in a much more cruel way than even the cynicism in academia.
That has not been my experience, but I hear you, and certainly I run into among our students tremendously skeptical Christians. But the people that I feel the heat from are generally materialists and atheists, and they are a legion at secular universities where I teach. So I'm getting it from both ends, but particularly from that other end, from the materialist sector, which believes that any kind of belief in life after death or souls or God is just nonsense. So, but I think that the people, just ordinary people, know better than these pedigreed academics who are, you might say, encouraged and even paid to be skeptical.
That's a good one. I have to laugh at this one because it's very descriptive of what it is. But as you said, we have hope because we are seeing it coming along and reaching out to many people. And I really appreciate how you are so humble to share that, Kardec reached to you and it's going to get to others. And you are like his collaborator now, as you're saying. I would say the best word is like you're Kardec's collaborator at a different time, but immortally speaking.
I agree.
We're collaborators, right?
Absolutely, and my dear friend Michael Tim, whom you will get to know in 2 or 3 weeks, is another one of those major collaborators, and he and I are doing the same kind of research and writing the same kind of books.
Yeah, it's amazing. I conclude that we have a lot to learn from you, and especially your studies and how much it intersects. I think it's going to empower us as the Spiritist movement, especially in the United States, to get to know how we can be more, effective sharing this. And,
I know it's
frustrating.
It is frustrating that we can't progress any faster than we do. But change does take time.
Exactly.
One of the great academics, Houston Smith, sometimes regarded as the dean of religious studies in America, wrote to me personally about 4 years ago and said, in the Bay Area in San Francisco, where he lives, and Berkeley, quote, materialism is on the ropes. In other words, in the Bay Area, you find an openness to this kind of worldview that you don't find in more conservative areas of the United States. And you know how everything starts in California, and particularly in the Bay Area?
Yeah.
I think that we're seeing a bit of a phenomenon, and that we're actually moving in the direction of a more spiritual worldview, even among academics eventually. That's going to catch up even with philosophers, paid philosophers. It's just a matter of time.
Yes, you're right. I think one of the barriers probably is, from my perspective, and I don't know, but this is one of my hypotheses. Right now, we are a bit tied up with some cultural aspects that need to be set apart and become more culturally competent. That's what I found out. It's not out of our willingness not to share, but I feel as we become more culturally adapted to the new cultures, we'll be more effective. It's like, right?
Absolutely. That's a wonderful way to put it. We need to become more culturally effective. Mm-hmm. It's very true. You have to have the right vocabulary. You have to understand your audience. You have to understand your enemy and know how to reach out to him. And that takes all kinds of skills that I don't profess to have mastered by any means. And we need to get better at those things. Yes, you're right.
We need it, and because I see the way Spiritism was founded in France, very philosophical. When he went to Brazil, he went through a huge adaptation and became more than anything else a very religious movement. So the religious component of Spiritism is the one that strikes the most in Brazil, but when it comes to America or Western Europe, for example, the wrapping of it, the first step of it, it needs to be different because it's not going to be easily accepted the way it's wrapped up.
That's right. There's another encouragement. There's a scholar, one of my colleagues up in Northern California, who has put together a 3-volume study. It's an anthology of different authors on spiritualism, not spiritism. Mm-hmm. But I asked him, could I write an article on spiritism for your volume? He said no, because others have already done that. In other words, he already has authors, and talking about academicians who have written about spiritism, and those articles will appear in his 3-volume set. Huh. So that's about a year away from publication, and I'll be interested to see what scholars are saying about spiritism.
That's quite interesting. Mm-hmm.
It is interesting, and I don't know the title of the work, but you should be looking forward for it. It'll be coming out in about a year.
What is his name again?
Christopher Moreman, Moreman.
All right.
Moreman. Yeah, he's done some great work, and of course, spiritism, from his point of view, would be just one face of spiritualism, and that's one way to look at spiritism.
Well, Kardec said that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So spiritualism and spiritism are brothers. They don't see things in quite the same way, but they're very, very close. And I think the difference is that some spiritualists don't believe in reincarnation, whereas all spiritists do. That's the main difference. And I would say
there is the Jesus factor. We spiritists, we see Jesus as our guided model, and because of the historical impositions that Christians did to spiritualists, they really refused it, and I think that's
exactly
the differential factor as well, right?
Yeah, I would see that. And so British spiritualism was slow to adapt to the reincarnationist worldview. But, in the 21st century, most books coming from the other world are clearly reincarnational.
Yes. Huh. Yes, you're saying we are in a most special era in time of our transition here on the earth, and there is a lot happening, and probably we'll see this happening at a faster pace, because when we say it's slow, it's relative to something.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I think that there is a momentum building, and it will become faster than it has been. That's my hope, anyway.
All right, Dr. Betty, we cannot thank you enough, and we would like to hear your final consideration for today, hoping that we can have you again at Kardec Radio and also at some of our events in the United States.
I'd love to do that, and one of the things that I'd like to do is to say more about my novel, The Imprisoned Splendor, and actually perhaps read a 10-minute passage from it, which would show the hearer how similar this book is to No Solar, how surprisingly similar it is. But there's no time for that now, but that's one thing that we could do, and I'd be delighted to come back and do whatever you needed me to do for that matter.
So consider it done. We're going to send you an email, and we love the proposal and the intersections between Imprisoned Splendor and No Solar, and we'll certainly do it probably in July or August. We'll send you an email, and we are honored to have you propose it and be with us, as Cynthia Fabretti is saying here in the chat. Great interview, and bring him back. We will, Cynthia, and we know we need you as a collaborator. Thank you so much for everything, Dr. Betty.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So, dear listeners, here we are. Are you delighted? Yes, we are ourselves. We cannot believe it. It is happening. It's happening right here now. And great hearts like Dr. Stafford. And as he said, in 2 weeks, we're going to have here the honor of having one of his colleagues talking about the transcendent Titanic. It's about spirit communications from those who drowned in the Titanic, as we are celebrating 50 years of the Titanic this year in 2012. There's a lot to learn, and as Jesus showed to us, he's the guiding model, and he's the spiritual governor. When he came here, he showed us that we need to teamwork. And that's why Kardec Radio could not be what it is without the help of Carlos Diaz, Kirsten de Mello, Daniel Santos, Leo Vieira, Isabella Vieira, and Dr. Magalhães, Joyce Magalhães, Marco Magalhães, Naur Fonseca, Gabi Ferreira, Dr. Nara Venditti, as well as Bernadette Leal, and many others of you out there, especially our dear Selena Shepherd, whom we're sending a lot of love and care in her recovery, as much as Steve Shepherd and all of our friends throughout the United States and around the world. So we now have another part of our program we want to share with you. After the break, you're going to listen to the beautiful segment. It's a lot about Spiritism. And don't go away, because after all the segments, we're going to have here Kirsten de Mello with his beautiful prayer, the Prayer of Caritas. Enjoy it. And after the break, we're going to be able to share a lot more with you. Let us enjoy it.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Enjoy this new release. Reborn for Love, by the renowned Brazilian scientist and researcher on reincarnation, Dr. Hernani Andrade. This novel describes one of the most extraordinary and genuine cases of reincarnation ever studied by Dr. Andrade's Brazilian Institute of Psychobiophysics Research in Sao Paulo State. Order your copy now at roundtable.uk@gmail.com or at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want to find a good way to explain life after physical death to kids or teenagers? Check out the book Message from a Teen in the Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio and psychographed by Chico Xavier. In this book, a teenager named Carlos explains his impressions on the new life in the spirit realm with his discarnate relatives and new friends. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
The Spiritist magazine is a trimestral digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
In the book, A Primer on Being Good by the Spirit May May, psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, explains in simple language appropriate for children two paths in life, the path of good or the path of evil. God has granted us the freedom to choose either one. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Now we return to our program.
Welcome to our Youth Education in Spiritism with Kardec Radio. I am Bernadette Leal, and I'll be spending a few minutes with you, inspiring to bring spiritual awareness and Spiritist teachings to our youth, parents, and educators. Today, I will answer 3 questions on teaching children about charity. First question: how can I teach my child to practice charity? The word charity comes from the Latin caritas, and its word in Greek, agape, means unlimited loving kindness to all others. So before teaching our children to practice charity, first, they need to learn how to treat others with kindness. Next, children need to be able to recognize and show empathy towards someone who is hurt or in need. But depending on their level of development, this may not be that simple. Jean Piaget explains very well the cognitive development of a child. Between the ages of 2 and 6, children are in the pre-operational stage, in which thinking is egocentric, perceiving the world from their own perspective. If your child is being selfish at this stage, it is part of their developmental level, but it does not mean that he cannot learn a behavior, even though he may not completely understand or feel it. Later, between the ages of 6 and 11, children are in the concrete operational stage in which they start to understand things around them, but their thinking is based on what they experience, see, hear, and touch. This is the perfect time to get them involved in some charitable activity and expose them to situations in which they will learn about compassion. At the age of 12 through adulthood, in the formal operational stage, adolescents and adults have the emotion and the reasoning to think abstractly and also about moral issues. In this stage, teenagers can do wonderful things to help our brothers and sisters who are in need, because they are able to acknowledge someone's pain and also think of ways to help him. Second question: what are some ideas to help my child begin practicing charity? An easy way to start is by involving your child in the process of donating some of his clothes, toys, or objects that he no longer needs. This is a great exercise to teach him about detachment. Then, drive to the donation center and have your child help you to carry the boxes out and hand them over. When you are done, talk to your child and explain how much joy and help he has provided to some children that are in need. You can also teach your child about money. If your child receives an allowance, encourage him to put in a glass jar a small amount every time he receives his allowance. It could be just $1. If you can afford it, match the amount that is in the jar, increasing its sum. Then, find a cause to which you and your child like to donate the money. Another suggestion is to buy canned food with that money to donate to the food bank in your neighborhood. Children can also donate their time. Find something that you can do in your community, school, church, spiritist center, once a week or a month, and do it together. You can invite your child's friends and family to get involved too. It will give him a sense of community, a sense that he and his friends are working together towards a common goal. Depending on your child's age, take him to visit an orphanage, old folks' home, or hospitals, so he can see and experience feeling empathy toward another person. At home, read stories to your children about people who help others. You may read about Francis of Assisi, Mother Teresa, and stories of children and teens that made a difference so he can relate. Now remember to teach your child to do any charitable work with joy. Yeah. Teach him to smile and make sure that you are smiling too. Nobody wants to be helped by someone who's sad or in a bad mood. Third question: are parents somehow responsible for their children's lack of interest in doing charity work? Today, we are living in a very materialistic world, surrounded by consumerism. It is all about having more and more. Children and teenagers are being overloaded by the media about material consumption. People are heavily spending and wasting their time and money on material possessions, sadly forgetting about a very important one: moral possessions, such as love, patience, understanding, compassion, and forgiving. Part of this responsibility belongs to parents and caregivers who give to their children all they want. They forget to teach them the value of work. Some parents who have a very busy life and do not make time with their children usually shower them with gifts of all kinds in order to compensate for their guilt of being absent in their children's lives. Giving material rewards also play a great role on how materialistic children are becoming nowadays. For instance, parents promise and give to their children gifts when they accomplish something like a good grade, doing well in the sports. So children learn that when they do something that pleases their parents, there is a good chance that they will be rewarded with something material. Or children will say to their parents, I'll help you with the dishes if you take me to the mall. I'll watch my little brother if you give me some money. I'll help you with the groceries if you drive me to my friend's house. We are creating a generation of children who are used to be bribed by their parents. Their actions are conditioned to always receiving something for their work. That's why teenagers struggle so much when it comes to charity, because true giving means giving unconditionally, and they are not used to giving without expecting anything material or a favor in return. Kardec Radio listeners, Chapter 13 of the Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec tells us a story of a rich mother and daughter who dresses with simple clothes and go visit and help a needy mother whose children are cold and hungry. Then the rich mother says to her daughter, What can you give, daughter, when you have nothing of your own? If I give you something of mine to give away, the merit really won't belong to you. It is just me doing the giving in a different guise. What good does that kind of giving do? No, it isn't fitting for you. So instead, when I visit the sick, you will help me treat them. What a great example of teaching our children about charity and compassion. Let's also teach them that life can change at any moment. Today, you are helping someone, but tomorrow, you are the one who may need some help. Thanks for listening to Yes, and if you have any questions, please email us at kardec@kardecradio.com.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome back to the Spiritist Moment. Today we are going to be reflecting once again from the Spirit's Book, Part 3, The Moral/Divine Laws. We'll be referencing questions 638 through 642, dear friends. Well, we reflect specifically about the definition of evil. And, well, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the definition of evil is arising from actual or imputed bad character or conduct, a person of evil reputation. And so we look at evil as something negative, obviously, and something that we need to eradicate. But, interestingly enough, we learn from question 638 from the spirits that evil is necessary. It's no less evil by being necessary, but it's necessary. And they tell us that this necessity disappears as the soul purifies itself, thank goodness. But we learn with the law of destruction that evil has its necessity to destroy things, mainly when we think about physical destruction and the need for renewal. And we realize, as we learn with the spirits, that this necessity disappears when we as a humanity, as individuals, when we learn to purify ourselves. So, which is interesting, because if we reflect with question 641 from the Spirit's Book, it says, is the desire for evil as reprehensible as evil itself? And the Spirits wisely answer, that depends. There is virtue in voluntary resisting the desire for evil if one desires to commit it, especially when there is a possibility of satisfying the desire. However, if it is only because the opportunity did not present itself, the person is culpable. In other words, the person is guilty. And in other words, if you resist an evil because the opportunity presents itself, then you have a strong moral power, a strong will, and it's very significant because we see how a strong will plays in our moral progress, and this is one of the many things the spirits are sharing with us, and we learn how it plays a large role in overcoming evil within ourselves, our tendencies. Well, and it's so wise that the spirits don't let us off the hook at all. Not that easy. We learn in question 642 that Kardec so wisely has a follow-up question to 641 when he asks the spirits, in order to be pleasing to God and to ensure our future situation, isn't it enough simply not to do what is evil? And what do we think the spirits say? Well, let's take a listen. The spirits say, no, all must do good to the limit of their abilities, since all will answer for all the evil that has been resulted from the good that was left undone. How many times, dear friends, do we reflect within ourselves, perhaps amongst our family or within society or social circles? We think, I don't do anything bad. I keep to myself. I do no evil. I commit no crimes. I go to work and I come home. It's so interesting. The spirits even are informing us and are educating us that, dear friends, that is not enough. That is not enough. We learn about the law of society, that we need to be good citizens of society, that we also have to take responsibility, as the spirits are letting us know, we are responsible for the evil that happens because of the good we didn't do, for all the crimes we allow to occur because we cease to do goodness. So it informs us of so many things about the necessity of living within society, the necessity of working on ourselves from day to day, and also, dear friends, that it is just a mere matter of time before each one of us progresses towards this divine perfection. But as the spirits share with us in the Spirit's book, it's up to us how fast or how slow we progress, depending upon how much we work on ourselves. One great way, great tool, is to study, naturally, the Spirit's book, but also to utilize prayer in our moments of great difficulty, when we feel that we are being weakened by our tendencies and perhaps by influences, spiritual influences, or perhaps influences from the incarnates as well. Let us utilize prayer and deep meditation and reflection daily to find more strength from our guardian angel and from our divine Creator. And as always, we wish you many blessings.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Would you like to liberate yourself from your life struggles or to find inner balance? The Inner Journey CD has 3 beautiful visualizations that will help you bring harmony to your life. As Joanna DeAngeli tells us to, live in a way that you leave enlightening footprints in your pathway as if they were stars pointing out the pathway to happiness. To find this CD, go to the bookstore on the Spiritist Society of Baltimore webpage, www.ssbaltimore.org. That is www.ssbaltimore.org, and start your inner journey today.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
A new great book and tool for kids and educators. The children's book, Our Father by the Spirit May, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is available for purchase at www.edisayofamerica.com. Buy your copy today.
And now we return.
Good morning, dear Kardec Radio listener. Welcome to our segment, Spiritism in Your Life. Today we're going to talk about some of the characteristics of Spiritism, especially its universality. And what does that mean? In order to explain exactly what universality means, we want to ask you a few questions. Imagining our society today, where everything needs to be rationalized, double-checked, and confirmed, could one individual be successful to start up a whole new set of ideas that would explain to us many delicate questions, including what is God? Wouldn't that be easy for us to be deceived, or for many people to deceive him? Wouldn't it be easy for the ideas to disappear? Could the ideas be changed because of personal influence, including ambition, selfishness, pride, society, and cultural background? So Spiritism started in a different way. It was not proclaimed by one person. It was actually brought through direct communication by spirits. So the source, not incarnated humans, and it's coming from different parts of the world, different people, independent of background, independent of the society, of time, social class. In other words, now we have no nationality. Spiritism is not imposed by any social class. It lays outside any other creeds, because we know that the Spiritist message is coming from different parts of the world through different spirits and different mediums. We can understand that Spiritism is independent of revolutions, physical disturbances, any other contradictions, ambition, even obsession. Because if it was coming from one person only, well, that would be very easy for someone, either incarnate or discarnate, to switch the ideas, to change the concepts. But now, because it's universal, the concepts can be analyzed and judged. So the universal opinion is actually the supreme judgment of Spiritism. My dear friends, this is the message we want to leave with you today. Spiritism is here for us to analyze it, to learn from it. And after looking at all this amazing amount of information coming from elevated spirits everywhere, we can now freely make the decision to follow it, to understand it, and to put it in practice. And we're going to finalize our segment today with a passage from the book Our Daily Bread by the Spiritual Manual, called Spiritism and the Faith. Manifestations of spiritual life exist in all the foundations of the divine revelation, in the most varied circles of faith. Spiritism, therefore, in itself, ceases to be the surprise innovation of the times, but rather depicted in the root of all religious schools. Moses established contact with the spiritual sphere in the Sinai. Jesus is seen by the disciples in the Tabor, surrounded by illustrious souls. The apostolic school establishes a relations with the spirit of the Master after his death, and consolidates the redeeming Christianity in the world. The martyrs of the amphitheaters abandoned their flagelled bodies as they contemplated sublime visions. Muhammad initiated his religious task upon hearing an invisible messenger. Francis of Assisi perceived emissaries from heaven who exhorted him to a renovation of the church. Martin Luther registered the presence of beings from another world. Teresa of Avila received the visit of discarnate friends and is led to inspect regions of purgatory through the mediumistic phenomenon of out-of-body experience. Signals from the kingdom of the spirits will follow the believers, affirms the Christ. In all the institutions of faith, there are those who enjoy, who take good advantage of, who calculate, who criticize, who oversee. Those are still definite candidates for illumination and renovation. Those that believe, however, and accept the determinations of service that flows from on high, will be followed by the revealing account about immortality, wherever they are, in the name of the Lord, by emitting sanctifying vibrations. They will expel the forces of darkness and of evil, and will be easily recognized among the frightened men, because they will always speak in a new language of sacrifice, of peace, of renunciation, and of love. Thank you all, my friends, and God bless us.
Good morning, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome to one more program with God at Home. I am Nauru Fonseca.
And I am Gabi Ferreira. Today we're studying Chapter 15, The Wise Minister, of the book Jesus in the Home, by Spirit Neo Lúcio, psychographed by Chico Xavier. In this lesson, Matthew and the disciples were talking about the mission of those who lead popular masses, kings, administrators, when Jesus, seeing that they were waiting for a kind word from him, smiled and told the story.
There once was a kingdom in whose inner circles there was a large party of adversaries. Little by little, the spirit of rebellion grew, and within a few weeks an entire province rose up against the king. Naturally concerned, the king called an accomplished judge to take over the position of prime minister, in the hopes of stifling the discord. But the judge began writing a huge number of laws which ultimately did not bring about the least bit of change.
Disillusioned, the ruler replaced him with a famous teacher, but upon being entrusted with the prestigious position, he wasted time making impressive speeches that did nothing to change the reigning unrest. The sovereign then asked for the help of a priest, who immediately began cursing the elements contrary to the king, making the situation much worse.
Disheartened, the king brought in a physician to handle over all matters, but as soon as he became the new minister, in order to win the king's approval, he stated that those who were opposed to the crowd were mentally ill. This made the disobedience become even more daring and rebellious.
Sensing the throne was in danger, the ruler replaced the physician with a famous general, who took drastic measures by recruiting an army among the loyal regions and orchestrated a civil war. When death began to reap countless lives, including the generals, it was with a heavy heart that the king called for wise men. The wise men arrived at the palace, did some hard thinking for some time, and then began new activities. He wrote no new laws, nor did he give speeches or censor the insurgents. He wasted no time on scorn, nor did he incite any notions of revenge.
He went personally to the turbulent region in order to determine what they might need. He saw that there were a lot of people without homes, jobs, or education, so he built houses, created workshops, opened roadways, and constructed schools, encouraging work and education and fighting bravely with understanding and fraternity against idleness and ignorance. It wasn't very long before all of the discord in the kingdom disappeared.
This story was told 2,000 years ago, but it might as well be in the front page of a Sunday's newspapers tomorrow. It should be no surprise that Jesus was speaking not only to the people of his time, but to all generations that followed. We should also interpret this lesson carefully. Jesus probably was not criticizing the public administrator. After all, the reins of the planet are on his hands, and all the leaders in the world are under his direction. The true lesson lays within the individual.
Instead of identifying the leaders of politics, academia, science, and the armed forces in the exterior, let's try to match their traits in us, in the way we solve problems, in the manner we conduct ourselves in society.
You definitely will not solve all of the world's problems. However, you can and should contribute to that goal. Joanna de Angelis has some straightforward recommendations. If you cannot stop wars, keep discussions that are disturbing away from you. If you're not able to feed the masses, offer a crust of bread to someone. If you do not have the means to lead groups that will change the world, change yourself ennobling yourself with good actions and solidarity.
The Prayer of Caritas. God, our Father, who is all-powerful and goodness, please provide strength to he who is experiencing pain and anguish. Give light to he who seeks the truth, and fill the human heart with love and compassion. God, please give the traveler the star that guides, solace to those in pain, and rest to the sick and weary. Father, give the guilty repentance, the spirit the truth. Give the child guidance, the orphan a father. Lord, let your goodness encompass everything that you have created. Clemency, my God, to he who does not know you. Hope to he who is in pain. Let your will allow the consoling spirits to spread peace, hope, and faith everywhere. God, may a single ray of light, a spark of your divine love, blaze the earth. Let us drink from the fountain of that infinite and fruitful goodness, and all tears will be dried and all pain lessened. A single heart, a single thought will rise to you like a cry of gratitude and love. Like Moses on the mountain, we await you with open arms. O Almighty, O greatness, all powerful, all beauty, all perfection, and we wish in some way to receive your mercy. God, give us the power to help progress, that we may rise up to you. Give us pure charity, give us faith and reason, give us simplicity that will make our souls the mirror in which your image should reflect. Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.